Hello students, I am Neeraj Kumar, your course instructor and program coordinator for BA JMC. Today I am going to talk about digital media and how it is going to impact the traditional media, that is newspapers and TV, in the Indian scenario. So for that thing, I have with me Mr. Sajal Gupta, CEO of Kiaos.in, which is a marketing cum PR firm and which is doing a lot of things in digital research, digital media research rather. And let me tell you about Mr. Sajal Gupta. He started his career from Times of India almost 35 years back, and he started with sales and marketing. But later, when Times of India started its digital or website, when they entered into digital field, so he joined them. He jumped the marketing and sales, left the marketing and sales, and joined the digital thing. And from there on, he has worked with several uh, advertising firms also, and Group M, one of them, and Dentsu and Publicis Media. He has worked, and now he's with Kiaos, and he's doing a lot of research on digital marketing. So, welcome, Mr. Sajal Gupta. Uh, uh, this
Thank
is
you,
this
Neeraj, and thank you everybody from Shulini University to give me this opportunity to talk with some enlightening minds.
so. My first question would be to you is how the rise of this digital media is impacting the readership and the viewership of newspapers and television, especially in scenario in India.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so let's look at media, and let's sort of rewind a little bit on the evolution of media in this country and even internationally. Uh, and let's I mean not going back to the prehistoric areas, but just go back to say about 1940s when or what I really call the electronic era. That was the era where you had radio, you had television just coming in and sort of really settling in. And the essential trend that moved media from the period before this was the evolution of science and technology as it was happening. So you had a telegraph telegram before that, from which would send information, and from there it moved to say an audio-visual sort of an movement era that also happened. But what was also happening parallelly, in addition to that, was if you really look at print media, the print the printing press technology was becoming smarter. You could print a lot more within a shorter period of time. Again, a clear implications of this science and technology that was really moving. Through that period, obviously, all these mediums grew, and science and technology kept on developing. So you form a, a pure cathode ray TV, you came down to a colored TV, and then you became a smarter TV. So all that really happened. Even from a radio, you became a transistor, and then and smart and this thing. And so everywhere there was technology was progressing. But then came the era of, I would say, the 90s, where the computer medium really took over. By that time, I think you had computers in certain formats being available, rather bulky mainframe computers that were there. But then in the 90s was when it became available to the common man. And everybody was slowly and steadily unfolding and getting to the computer. And then obviously the computer then moved ahead to some sort of a handheld for telephone, where you had the telephone media and the computer media converging. Now, again, movement in terms of science and technology really going ahead. Now, what was driving all this? If we really want to, one has to really look at it. What was the main drivers of this? The main driver for this, if you really ask me, is that while the need for news and information and entertainment continuously remained, but a couple of things that became very important is that people started expecting three basic things from media. One was immediacy. If there was a particular news that has broken, they wanted that to be released, to be available to them at the shortest possible time. The second thing was relatability. Now, news has to be in my language, my region, my something that I am really very comfortable with. And then finally is going to be the question of reliability. Can I really rely on this news? Now let's go in depth with each one of these three things. Let's look at immediacy. If you really look at it, immediacy is that when you really look at these various mediums, they all had a certain amount of time that one needed for it to be made available to people. Newspapers, if you really look at it, they would earlier be published at a frequency of, say, a fortnightly, then became weekly, and then became daily. And then in some cases, that was what it settled down eventually was a morning newspaper and an evening. Television, if you really look at it from a news perspective, earlier you typically had two or three releases of news bulletins every day. And then eventually you came to a scenario where you had uh, competing with immediacy, they started having 24-hour news channels coverage. But that also, from the news happening, somebody really picking up the news, creating a news bulletin, and then pushing it out took a period of time. And that is what the internet sort of really broke down. It practically took no time for somebody to be able to really report what is happening on the news. And that is one very clear indicator that really came across when you really look at news and as such, and you're looking at immediacy of news. Let's look at the
So,
next.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Let-
please continue.
Looking at the second part of it, when we are talking about relatability, uh, when you're looking at news earlier and media essentially earlier, you essentially had an English news that was going on. And especially when I'm talking about focusedly from an India perspective. Then slowly people started realizing that okay, you need to have a regional news as well. So you had started having a language news. But at this time, it was a one-sided sort of an area where you had people coming in, reading a news bulletin in a certain language. And it was basically, if you really look at it, radio news that one was getting used to was getting in and being made into a reportage on the television. So so that is where the change really is what the internet really brought about. It was not only news in your own language, but by my people, that people whom I relate with, and in many cases, my friend, right? And that gave me the real feel that the news or the information that was being given to me was being given to me by my people in my language, and that gave me that very very hard comfort that one really brought across on that. And to a large extent, this is what also built the third part of my discussion, which is trust. Now, it was my people giving me news about what is happening in my locality that gave me that degree of trust and be able to really believe in that. But also, if you really look at it, that till this time when we were looking at news, you were looking at a single way communication. You were looking at the newspapers and editor writing his story and then sending it down. You were looking at a news anchor who was taking to is giving you the news. So it was a single direction, unidirectional news coming out. But this is where the internet also really came across and changed it. It said that no, it won't be unidirectional, but it will be two directional or bi-direction. People were able to respond back to the news that one was um, that was being given to them. There was a debate that had started off, and thereby you were able to involve a lot more people in the overall dissemination of news. So I would say these three pillars that we really talked about, immediacy, relatability, and authenticity, what it really did was actually democratize news and made it available to anybody and everybody. Everybody could be anyone could be a news editor, anybody could be a news anchor. And that is, I think, what is the change that uh, the internet from a news perspective really brought in this country.
But as you said, Mr. Gupta, that internet, the digital medium, has given the freedom, or it has democratized the news, dissemination of news, in a way, as you said. So don't you think that this is become a big type of a responsibility also, and a liability also, in a way, that the what kind of news being disseminated to persons, and in what angle and what perception, what is to be perceived of the news? Do you think that this has become a
Absolutely,
big?
it is. I think, as the saying goes, with democracy comes responsibility,
Yeah.
right? So now so earlier, what was essentially happening was that you were getting the news and views of a few people, and there is an enough of a debate in this country that those news and views were that of a certain section of the society, and that was what the rest of the society was following with the democratization. One essential thing that has happened in this country is that bastion, or that limited number of people whose opinion was actually uh, taking most of the debates in this country. In fact, I would go ahead and say that it was also dictating a large number of debates in the parliament of this country. If that has opened out, it has let others to also come in and participate in that conversation. Now, it is also built to the point, Neeraj, what you are alluding to in terms of responsibility. There, when the opinions were limited to a few people, there were there were a few people that you there, and you could hold them responsible for their views. When you're opening it out to and democratizing it, there would be other opinions, and it will become lot that much more difficult for someone to really control. But that is what the internet is all about. Internet is all about democratizing and self-governance. The internet is about the fact that when people will come and give a particular point of view, and if that point of view is something that is resonating with people, they will be consuming it more. And they will, and that is what will be able to really build and that affinity to be able to keep on following. If there is misinformation, a continuous misinformation by and that one would try to propagate, it is that whole ecosystem that will actually control, be able to control and be able to really look at that. You can
So
debate with me that this is whether this is successful or not so successful. There are
yeah,
enough cases on both sides
yeah,
of
that's
the
that's
fence
true. That's true. That's true.
to be able to really say that. But overall, if you really look at it, what it has also brought down in terms of as a consumer of news, it has also brought in the fact that you would be getting multiple point of views, but what is the your opinion that you really create for yourself also needs to be responsible. As a
Yes.
news consumer, you need to be the responsibility to a large extent lies with you to
Yeah.
be able to really look at as to what is the opinion that you create. So perhaps what was easy at that time that you had somebody who was collating the news and giving you a point of view that he created and his point of view was given to you was perhaps convenient to me if I was to
Yeah.
look at it in one way.
Yeah.
But
That's true.
now I will have that convenience is not there with me. I will have to look at multiple points of view to create my own point of view, which to a large extent is a more knowledgeable point of view because I would have looked at both sides of the story. Yes,
So
you can well argue with me on the opposite, but then that's a debate that is open.
yeah.
That's always open.
That's true. That's true. So the thing is, like whatever you said, that means that the way news is being reported and the way news is being consumed has totally changed after the digital media came in. So, do you think the my question is related to now this, that do you think the digital media after coming to digital media or the coming to this age, the newspaper, the traditional media, the newspaper, the radio, or the television will remain relevant in coming years or in near future?
So, Neeraj, I will actually say that I'll answer that question in two parts. But my umbrella question, answer to your question is there is no threat.
Okay, yeah, that's
And I
very
will,
assuring. That's very assuring
yes. So let
for
me,
all
and
the
I,
budding journalists.
yes, to all the budding journalists, I would say that absolutely there is no threat to media.
Yeah,
Now I will, and as I said, I'm going to answer this question in two parts. The second
yeah,
part of my question is going to be more data driven in terms of revenue
yeah,
uh, that each of these mediums is bringing in. The first part of my question that I'm really going to be talking about is the type of news. Now, if you really look at it, transition from, say, the print to internet, that was the first transition that really happened before the video came in. If you spoke to a journalist who was doing that transition from a print to the internet, the first thing that he really said was, I have a restriction that I will have to make my story in 250 words or 300 words, whatever your editor gave you.
yeah,
But the internet never gave you gave you the complete freedom. So you could create a detailed story going into what he really wanted this thing. So that was the phase one of internet. That was the computer part of the internet. But the internet then moved on and you came to the mobile part of the internet.
yeah,
Transition from the desktop to the laptop to the mobile. And now the mobile, you turned everything on the head. You said that I want news in 60 words or 60 characters in some cases.
Yeah.
So here, where I was taking the complete pleasure of actually writing my complete detailed story, I was told now that you summarize it, give me a 60 word or a 60 character summary of the news. So that really changed everything over there. The second part of it, television, audio visual, very nice. But then again, the internet, the mobile, and with the entering of the mobile, I have to now crunch my story down to less than 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds at the most. I can't do a long form story, right? And finally, I will also talk a little about advertising from a communication point of view. So I
No,
have a,
before you go to the revenue part of the advertising sales.
I'm not gone into the data part of it.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'm
Yeah.
advertising from a communication point of
Okay. Okay.
view. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, from an advertising from a communication point of view, I had earlier, if I had to tell a story, I was most probably doing it in a cinema hall, and I had 2 or 3 minutes to tell my story. Then came good old television, expensive medium. I was given 30 seconds. 30 seconds you have to tell your story. Came the internet and came the mobile. I would rather say straight jump to the mobile.
Yeah.
And what I have now is 15 seconds to tell my story.
Yeah.
I have to tell my story as to why somebody should consider me. I have to tell him that this is my brand name, and I have to create an association with him in that video. And it is 15 seconds. And to make matters worse, it is 8 seconds that I have got. The balance 8 seconds is bonus if I'm able to really catch on to his interest.
Yeah.
I will actually quote a, a study that was done recently on the attention span of humans. In the year 2000, we were talking about 12 seconds is the attention span. So what I mean by 12 seconds attention span is that in the first 12 seconds or so, a person will decide whether he wants to continue listening to me or not.
Yeah, to watch or not.
Today, that has come down to 8 seconds. And it is equivalent or less than a goldfish. So if you really look at it, we used to always say attention span of a goldfish in a derogatory sense, but we've actually got there. As humans, we've actually equaled that. So that is something that is very clearly the thing that has happened in communications. I wouldn't put this in a bucket of news or what do you call it, commercials, or even if I was to look at it from long form movies. You have to really be quick and be able to really catch somebody's attention in 8 seconds. And I think that is something that one really, or less than 8 seconds, I would really put it.
So,
Now,
so
coming to the
yeah,
part
please.
two,
Yeah.
I've told, I talked about news and the way new communication has evolved and certain changes that have really taken place on that.
Yeah.
Now, let's see how this all translates into hardcore revenue. The Indian advertising ADEX or advertising expenditure, which is the largest part of revenue for any media today. So any media would have two revenue streams. One is advertising, and the other one is what is subscriptions. Subscriptions, or the price that you pay for the media. It could be
Yeah,
the price that you pay for a newspaper, or the price that you pay for subscribing to a channel on television.
yeah,
But the larger part of the revenue really comes in from advertising. So let's look at advertising, and let's look at the largest part. The Indian ADEX has been growing, and it has been growing quite substantially year on year. And if you really look at it overall, the it has been showing a very healthy 15%, at an average of 15% growth year on year, if you would really look at it over the last 4 to 5 years. So therefore, I would say that you can easily say that the digital ADEX of this country is increasing.
yeah.
But what is happening is that the ad mix, I mean, that is the channels that people are using, that is changing, and it is changing considerably. Currently, if I was to look at the year 2022 that just got over, um, digital had close to about 54% odd market share. Television
That is
had about
that is ad revenue.
ad revenue, AdX, yes, 54% ad revenue. If you would look at TV, it had about 30 odd percent, 31% to be right, and print had about 10%. Now let me roll back, give you the same numbers for 2019. Digital had 29%, TV had 41%, and print had nearly 21%. So as you very clearly see that digital as a percentage of the ad revenue, percentage of the ad revenue or its market share in the AdX grew from 30 to 54, 20%. Television declined from 40, 41, so to about 31. Print declined from 21 to 11.
Yeah,
So what has happened essentially, if you really look at it, the concentration of, or the percentage of ad spends on the various mediums have taken a complete upheaval. What it essentially means is the total influence on the advertising business has gone has had a head over heel change.
yeah,
But if on the other side, if you really look at it, all these mediums, whether you're looking at TV, print, or digital obviously on the top line has also grown, because that is the only way you would be able to have not only a market share growth but also a top line growth. But TV, though its market share has dropped, it has also grown by about 10% every year. Print, if you really look at it, yes, it had in this period 29 to 22, print in the 2 years in between where we had a lockdown that took a hit, but overall it has also been growing. So to say that any medium is shrinking, I wouldn't say that is the right thing to say. My other thing to say is that all mediums are growing, and this is India.
so that means Mr. Gupta, you want to say कि मतलब एक्चुअल परसेंटेज वाइज हो सकता है शेयर कम हुआ हो, लेकिन चूंकि एड स्पेस बढ़ रहा है, वो मार्केटिंग वो स्पेस बढ़ रहा है, तो वहां पे और नई कंपनीज आ गई हैं जो एड देना चाहती हैं, तो वो स्पेस चूंकि बढ़ रहा है, इसलिए इनका रेवेन्यू, ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया का रेवेन्यू कम हो रहा है, लेकिन दे आर स्टिल ग्रोइंग. So
Absolutely, still,
that is why you are saying कि क्या कहते हैं, किसी भी मीडिया को कोई थ्रेट नहीं है.
absolutely, yeah, that's right. But I would do the interpretation a little differently.
Yeah.
Is that people are spending more,
Yeah.
and while they are spending more, they are they are not cutting down on any of these
Okay.
mediums. If I was spending 100 rupees on print earlier, I would continue spending 101, 102 rupees on print. But I would have, if I was spending only 70 on digital, I would make it into say 120 today.
Yeah.
That is the change that is happening.
Yeah.
But mind you, it is a little different sort of a situation globally.
Okay.
Globally, if you really look at it internationally, um, print is declining. Print is declining, and uh, so print is declining. Television is having it's more or less stagnant if you really look at
Okay.
it, and digital is growing, and it's growing
Yeah.
not as fast as it's growing in India, but it is growing.
Okay.
So that is there. So if you were to really ask me, it is the way we are consuming content. And I'm now broadening it from our earlier discussion in news, and I'm bringing entertainment also into it, into
Okay.
the fold, because this is the two main buckets in which
Yeah.
we consume media.
But if you differentiate between news and entertainment, I think news part is very low. Total.
Of the ADEX that we just talked
Yeah.
about just now,
Yeah.
the news ADEX would not be more than 10%.
Yeah. That is one.
So if you ask me to put those buckets in, I would actually put sports being the another very strong bucket, and
Yeah.
then general entertainment.
Yeah.
General entertainment, including your television as well as um, the movies and etc.
Movies. Yeah. Movies. Etc. Yeah.
So, but yes, I, and the percentages will be about 10, 15, and so 25 and 75%
Yeah.
going in onto
Something
entertainment.
like that. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, yeah. So that would broadly be the area in which one is really moving in. Uh, in the entertainment space, slightly different areas that are there. It was essentially driven lot by cinema, television, and then from television now it is moving to the streaming era.
Okay. Okay. So
Even sports to that extent. Live sports is when you're looking at sports to a large extent, is what was a key driver. And one really saw that, again, it moved from television, it is now moving towards um, live streaming.
yeah.
So live
So,
streaming, as all of us would have been consuming, say we consumed the IPL on Hotstar,
yeah.
or we saw the FIFA on Geo.
Yeah.
That is how one will really be looking.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. So, one thing I would like to ask you, Mr. Gupta, like जो आपने अभी एड रेवेन्यू की बात की, एड रेवेन्यू एक जो ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया था उसका एक रेवेन्यू मॉडल था कि कैसे वो पैसे अर्न करेंगे. वन वाज सब्सक्रिप्शन, whether it was newspaper, people used to buy newspapers, the newspaper organizations to get money. The other was advertisement. The came from major part of revenue came from advertisement. Almost 70 to 80% came from advertisement. Same was with television. In digital media, where everybody has become a journalist or a presenter, people are showing their food shows, they're recording something, cooking something and putting it on social media, they're going somewhere, recording some क्या कहते हैं जिसे कहना चाहिए कोई टूरिस्ट प्लेस पे गया उसका कुछ रिकॉर्ड किया उसको डाल दिया. So there are so many things. क्या डिजिटल मीडिया के लिए कोई, if the like all newspapers have their websites, उनके साथ तो एक रेवेन्यू मॉडल वही है कि एड आएगा, आपको उससे रेवेन्यू मिलेगा. बट व्हाट अबाउट द रेवेन्यू मॉडल फॉर इंडिविजुअल्स और ए स्मॉल ग्रुप, वेरी स्मॉल ग्रुप, 2-3 पीपल अपना एक करके एक कैमरा ले लिया, एक माइक ले लिया, उसके साथ एक चालू कर दिया. क्या उसका कोई रेवेन्यू मॉडल डेवलप हुआ है, या वो डेवलप हो सकता है? कुछ ऐसा कुछ है, इसके बारे में आप बता सकते हैं?
Neeraj, there's a very strong revenue model. And all my youngsters in this room will be talking about their influence of friends,
Okay.
right? Now, their influence of friends, I'm sure, have their banks rolling.
Okay.
There are two revenue sources for them. One is the revenue that they will be able to really get from the advertising that is put across on their content.
Yeah, this one is that.
That is one. The second revenue that they have is what is called the influencer marketing revenue. Now, I am talking about food, as you just said. Any company which is actually selling foods or or any spices which are related to the content that he is talking about makes an ideal fit for me. He is able to get in his channel people who are interested in my subject, interested in this thing, and I'm able to reach out to them and be able to tell them that not only use my product, but how to use my product. Right? I can do that a much more in-depth sort of uh, communication there. And food is one. Beauty apparent is huge. Um,
Health,
entertainment
health,
recommendation.
health, 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 health has become very important.
Health has become important. That is again one area. See,
Yeah.
these are certain areas where people will be looking. They look for information. They go out seeking for information. Interest areas. So, what it essentially has done is that you've created small pockets of interest pockets, and I'm then be able to do a communication to these interest pockets one on an individual basis and in a lot more deeper way. If I was to, if I my communication had to be done through an advertising, I would have had that 30 seconds or odd with me, and I had to pack in, and I had to have that one communication that this is it, this is what my features are, blah blah blah. But here I am going in not only talking about my features, I'm talking about how to use my product and that bit of engagement, further engagement in that. This has opened out what is called the influencer marketing part of uh, the digital media. And this is, if you really look at influencer marketing, is in India, my last numbers that I came across is a large 200,000 crore market,
That's true. That's true.
right? And there is more than enough opportunity for somebody uh, to do create content in these various little interest pockets to be able to and earn money out of that.
Okay. अच्छा, वन थिंग मैं ये पूछना चाहूँगा कि एक नया जो आ रहा है, जो काफ़ी आजकल चल रहा है, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, जिसको हिंदी में कृत्रिम मेधा भी कहते हैं. बड़ा कठिन शब्द है. तो तो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस का जो डेवलपमेंट होगा, तमाम नए तरीके का भी आपने भी पढ़ा ही होगा. तो क्या कहते हैं, जो चैट जीपीटी हो गया, या जो क्विलबॉट करके कुछ एक वेबसाइट है, तमाम वेबसाइट्स हैं जो कंटेंट क्रिएट कर रही हैं. उसमें इंफॉर्मेशन पहले से भरी हुई है. यू जस्ट आस्क क्वेश्चन और आस्क समथिंग एंड इट विल गिव यू द कंटेंट. सो और एक बाकायदा प्रॉपर वे में एक पूरा कंटेंट आपके सामने आ जाएगा. आपको बहुत ज़्यादा मेहनत करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. क्या ये किसी तरीके से मीडिया इंडस्ट्री को इम्पैक्ट करेगा, और अगर करेगा तो किस तरीके से करेगा? आई एम टॉकिंग बोथ in terms of employment and in terms of content.
Okay. To answer this, I'll go to the traditional W's of journalism.
Yeah.
So if you really look at the traditional five W's of journalism, where you're talking about who, what, when, and where. Now,
Yeah.
these four, if you really are looking at it, there is nobody better than the AI who can do this.
Yeah.
He can go ahead, look up the information, be able to tell you from the conversations that are happening on the internet, what or from the content that is available on the internet. He says that who is the person, what is he interested in, or what does he want to consume, when does he want to consume it, does he what is his consumption different in the morning, is his consumption different in the afternoon or in the evening, when is he consuming it, whether he's consuming it while he's driving, while he's at home. So all that is hardcore data and data driven reporting. Now that is something that is what the AI is much smarter to be able to do it than any other human, than a human,
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
right? He will be able to, I mean, if I can process, say, 10 bytes of information, in a period of time, he will be able to do 1,000 bytes in the same amount of time, or even more. So, but then let's come to the final W. Why? That is where the AI will stop, and that's where the human brain will come in. Nobody will be able, however much you train the AI, he will not be able to do the analysis of this.
Yeah, analyze. You won't be able to analyze it.
Will
Yeah,
not be able
that's
to.
true. Yeah.
In fact, this morning only I was studying on one particular example in which they have effectively used AI to do crunch in data about what people are talking about their company in terms of customer feedback,
Yeah.
right? So the AI was able to look at it, he was able to get the information, he was able to crunch that information, and he was also able to tell you that what is the response I need to give it. Now comes the final part. What is the tonality I have to give it to them,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, do we, the tonality I will have to give him, do I need to be aggressive? I need to be soft? Do I need to
Yeah, that's true.
do I need to show
Very.
some empathy? That I think is where the human will come across. And so, very clearly, it has to be co creation and co ownership of any communication or anything that um, that the human will have to do with the AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be
Yeah.
something that is joint. Having understood this, comes to the second part of the question, Nirajji, what you asked me of what is the effect on employment and this. What, having said that, having now really got that this is AI is not replacing it. I will need human mind, so it is that I will need human minds there. But the human mind will have to now start doing a lot more cerebral or a lot more higher quanti- mind work than what it was
Yes.
doing earlier,
Early. Yeah.
right? Earlier, yes, I had to start from scratch, so I had to do the who, where, what, right? That is coming. That is going to be done by the AI and presented to me. It is now expected of me to read that, analyze that, and make it make and certain communication out, which will eventually go out to anyone to be able to really. I will ask everybody who's listening to this video to do one simple exercise. Take a piece of paragraph from anywhere and put it on ChatGPT. Take out the output, paste it on a piece of, in front of you. Read the output. You will not want to share that. You will perhaps use all that information that thing comes out, but you will then want to make that little bit of changes into it to be able to make it smoother, comfortable for somebody to consume. And that is what is there. What is going to be the change? It is going to be the type of work that you will have to do, which will change, but it is not going to be replacing any human being.
That's true. That's true. And one thing I realized when I was using ChatGPT, testing it to some extent. So what I realized that you should know the subject very well. Because you don't know, अगर if you don't know the subject, अगर आपको subject का idea नहीं है, उसके तमाम nuances नहीं पता है, तो हो सकता है चैट जीपीटी में कुछ ऐसी information हो which is not true, जो कहीं पड़ी हो, वहीं कहाँ से उसने उठाई है, जो भी information उसमें feed की गई है, जो भी information उसके पास available है, it can like I must give you, मतलब जो try किया था हम लोगों ने, एक communication industry के business बड़ी family है, उनके बारे में कुछ ऐसे ही मजाक में पूछ लिया कि वो क्या सीन है उनका. अब उसने एक बाकायदा पूरी कंकॉक्टेड स्टोरी दे दी कि उसमें ये बिजनेस है, तमाम इसमें इस तरीके के टसल हुए, फिर अलग हो गए, इसमें ये हो गया, वो पूरी कंकॉक्टेड स्टोरी एक बना दी उसने. तो क्या कहते हैं ये, तो इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि एआई है आपकी हेल्प के लिए है, लेकिन आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि आप जिस सब्जेक्ट के बारे में पूछ रहे हो उसकी आपको बेसिक नॉलेज कम से कम जरूरी होगी, जहां तक मेरा मानना है. मिस्टर गुप्ता, लास्ट क्वेश्चन मैं आपसे पूछना चाहूंगा कि चैलेंज तो है ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया के सामने, न्यूज़पेपर इंडस्ट्री एंड क्या कहते हैं टेलीविजन इंडस्ट्री के सामने चैलेंज तो है, और मेजर चैलेंज है डिजिटल मीडिया का, और एआई के आने के बाद से वो चैलेंज और बढ़ गया है. आपको क्या लगता है, अगर मैं कहूँ शॉर्ट में, अगर आप इसका जवाब दे सकें कि क्या तरीका है ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया के पास इस चैलेंज से निपटने का, how to tackle this challenge?
So I think what traditional media, one couple of things that will need to be done, I think, and I am no fortune teller to be able to really
No.
say much, but
But your 30, 35
yeah,
years of experience, how media changed
yeah.
in
So
last
so
35
so
years.
so essentially, the way you've been operating is continuously changing, and I think this is a moment where you will have to change it once again. You will have to. There will be newer technologies that will be coming in there. Today we are all discussing AI and this chat GPT and conversational marketing is, or conversational tools as they're calling it today. That is the talk of town now. Tomorrow, day after, there will be something else. But I think what essentially one will have to do is be able to really look at, as I said, how do you co-work or co-own and co-create along with these tools? So how a newspaper house today will have to work along with using these tools in the current scenario is what will be what which will become important. So you might not. I mean, while you will continue to need that stringer in the local area to be able to give you the local flavor of what is happening. But once that stringer has got you that information to be able to bring it down to certain um, and and backing it up with the rest of the news, certain amount of research that one really needs to do, AI will help you. Then once that all that thing has come out and what is going out, whether it is going out on the print media or going out through an anchor, you will again need a human mind to really work on it. So it is only difference that will come across is that you will find interventions happening at various places, and you will have to keep on adapting to those
Those
interventions.
interventions, yeah, that's true.
I think
That's true.
that is what is there, the challenges that are there in for the print and news media.
Yeah.
There are other, this is the operational side of it. There are other challenges as well. Uh, the distribution of ad revenue is one very, very strong
Yeah.
problem. I think both uh, the at least the print industry is facing today. And with the coming of AI, that might, as one looks at it, it will get accentuated to some extent.
Yeah.
Is that you are putting in all the effort to create the content,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that is what I was going to say, that it
You
is
are
the,
putting in all the effort.
in the end, it is the content it will matter
It will be
in
the
the end.
content that will matter. At the end of the
Yeah,
day, that's where
at the end of
you,
the,
you
that's
you
how
need
it
to
is.
put this thing. But at the end of the day, there's some smart tool that's come in and sort of picked up your content, made sense of it to go out, and that's where there is a lot of legislation also happening.
Yeah, that's
There
true.
is a lot of discussion from area that how will the ad revenue should be distributed, because currently in this current scenario, as far as digital media, all these beautiful numbers I gave you, but one thing that one has to really understand is the technology provider or the technology platforms are the one who's taking the lion's share of the money away.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And it is very worrisome in the Indian scenario, because of the digital ad numbers that I really gave you a short while back, I would say nearly 80% goes away to two or three, the top two
Top two.
platforms.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, he is the one who's given the technology is the given the technology, he is the one who sort of understands the consumer the best.
Yeah, that's true.
He knows what the consumer is looking for. What is he looking? What is he? Um, when is he looking for? What is his, does he have the capacity to buy
Yeah,
or not? I mean, he's got a lot more information that we typically, to a large extent, people struggle to do in a media plan, to be able to realize who's my customer and what my customer is doing,
yeah, that's true.
right? That aspect of it, information is
That's
already available with him,
true.
and he is effectively using it. And tell me, how many of you have already experienced it, that you've gone ahead looking for, say, a black shirt, and soon enough you find that that black shirt
Black shirt is
is being
flooded with the different
you're
options
being
of black
shown
shirts.
various different options of black
Of
shirt,
black shirt.
right?
That's true.
To the extent that you start feeling spooky.
That's true.
So that happens, and that is happening. And this debate and legislative debate is not only happening in India.
All over the world. All over the
Competition
world.
Controller of
Yeah.
India is taking a very critical view of this.
Yeah.
Um, there are massive fines that have already been imposed
Who's yeah.
on these platforms in both EU. Um, our friends from Google and Facebook are sitting on the US Senate every other day answering
Yeah, that's
very difficult questions,
yeah.
right? So that is there. I mean, so this is there, and then uh, coming to the point, Neeraj, that you were telling me about content being
most important thing.
being used without the content creator or the newspaper house being getting his share. Certain legislations have already been passed in Australia, where these platforms have already been forced to be share uh, a, a more significant part of their revenue than what they were doing currently,
Earlier.
right? And so I would say there is a global discussion that is happening, and I'm sure there will be an equitable solution to this.
So थैंक यू वेरी मच मिस्टर गुप्ता, आपने हमारे साथ बात की, हमारे स्टूडेंट्स को इतनी अच्छी जानकारी दी, और सबसे जो जर्नलिज्म के जो हमारे स्टूडेंट्स हैं उनके लिए जो सबसे एश्योरिंग बात आपने कही कि किसी भी मीडिया को कोई थ्रेट नहीं है, चाहे प्रिंट हो, चाहे टेलीविजन हो, चाहे डिजिटल मीडिया का नया प्लेटफॉर्म हो. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All the best. Thank you.